Hi, I'm Julia Noyes, your instructor. So this is the last project for your oil painting class. It's the project of your choice, something you've been waiting for all semester. You still need to include the 6 techniques with this assignment. So don't forget my text number, 402-615-2789. This assignment due May 1st. So the Cityscape is due April 15th, coming up soon. And then this assignment, the project of your choice, it can be an abstract, it can be a portrait, a landscape, floral, whatever you like, your choice, as long as it includes the 6 techniques that I'm showing you today. And some of you were around when I demonstrated this before. I wanted to show you, this is a painting I'm working on right now. Almost looks like a watercolor, because I'm really diluting the paints so they're very thin and very drippy. So this is a 4 by 5 foot abstracted floral. When I start a painting, I really do thumbnails. I like to do thumbnails. It's really helpful. That's why the thumbnail is also required for you. So with this piece, I did some photographs downtown on the corner of 9th and O Street. And from those photos, I developed some thumbnails. And so then from the thumbnails, I'm thinking, okay, what techniques am I going to use? How am I going to put this all together? So I did like the thumbnail. I liked the proportion. I knew I was going to use this size canvas, so I had that in mind from the very beginning. And then I could figure out my color schemes, my techniques right away with the thumbnail. So after I have the thumbnail done, then I practice some different techniques and decide, okay, what techniques do I want to use for this? So the more pre-planning you do, I think the better rate you have for being successful, the better chance. So I like to do thumbnails. I like to have it planned, because it isn't really random. If you are determined to have a certain look, go for it. Have an idea in mind. And so I really challenge you to do that. And not that all painters do it that way, but I think for learning and really learning fast, this is a great approach. You know, some artists are very random. I find that a lot harder to do, because what's the goal? It's like playing football, we don't know where the goalie is. So think about that. For this assignment for sure, you have to have the thumbnail, you have to have the 6 techniques on a sheet, and also your final painting. So I wanted to show you how I developed some of my cityscapes, since that was your last assignment, cityscapes. So I wanted to do a series, but I wanted them to look different, not all the same. So this is very dark, this is very light. You know, this has a different kind of energy. Maybe it suggests lights or fireworks. I like that idea. It can be either one. And then over here, this is another one of my Cityscape series. So these are all new. I wanted you to see these because you saw some of the beginnings of these in class, so I wanted you to see the final product. Now let's do the 6 techniques. The first technique is stamping. So I think you've all done stamping of one kind or another, but stamping simply means using something that you're going to repeat a pattern with a material. So here I'm using a set of letters. This happens to be an H. You could make your own stamps. You could cut things out of styrofoam and use those as a stamp. You could have found things like this, a magic marker that I'm going to dip into paint and repeat the circular shape. What I'm doing with this for H, I'm putting some oil paint down, and I'm going to use my pellet knife, and I'm going to really put a lot of paint on this stamp. So I'm going to work the stamp and really get quite a bit of paint on. So it's going to take quite a bit. And then what I can do is I can test this, and maybe the stamp isn't going to be perfect. I think that might be okay. I might end up using this as a pattern in my design, or maybe my design will have words. So of course, every time I stamp, I have less paint on my stamp, and I like that. I like that these are soft and these are very crisp and deliberate. So stamping is one part of your design. It doesn't have to be deliberate painting, stamping. You know, maybe the stamping ends up being a texture. You can make your own stamps, and I like to buy the styrofoam paper. You can buy it, it's very inexpensive. It's very easy, you can just cut it with the scissors. You could glue this on a piece of cardboard or on a piece of wood and have this stamp where you could use it a million times. So stamping is very easy to do. The next step is, in your techniques, is going to be collaging. And I think we've all collaged, and with collaging, what I'm doing is I can take a magazine clipping, newspaper clipping, many things can be collaged. Even thin paper, thin fabrics, you would probably have a wealth of things that you could collage. So it's not like you have to go out and buy collage materials. So I found this in this magazine, and I cut out this pattern because I liked the color, I also liked the shape. And with collaging, the huge advantage of collaging is you can move it around your painting and decide where you want it. Because in painting, once we put a flower down there, it's not easy to move. But with collaging, you can move it around right away and decide where you want it. So I put a lot of glue on this, and I'm just using Elmer's glue. You can use any kind of household glue, but I'm using a lot, and I'm really trying to get it on the edge of my paper. So for this painting, I can move this around, and I don't like it out here because it doesn't fit in with the design. I like it somewhere down here because it actually repeats these colors and some of these shapes. So I can say, yes, I really like it here. So I'm going to really press this down, smoothing it out from the middle out to the edges so the glue gets out to the edge. Look at that, isn't that cool? It's just added another layer to this painting. This already has collaging here. Now if you find when you collage that some of the edges didn't get glued down, you can always go back and stick some glue underneath and redo the edge. So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Now that I have this glued, I am going to lay it down. I'm going to put a piece of plastic on top of it, and I'm going to weight it down so it won't curl up and come off. So I'm going to let that dry a couple hours or even overnight. Now if I find out tomorrow when I look at this that, it looks like a piece of paper that's glued on this, well then I might use some paint and go over part of it to make it integrate or maybe make it feel more unified to the painting. So now when you're using oil painting, it's better to collage first while the canvas is dry and you haven't painted on it yet. It's easier to do that than try to collage onto oil paint. Sometimes it doesn't really stick. And if you do collage onto oil paint, it has to be dry. It doesn't work if the paint is wet. It will not stick, it will come off. So this is one idea for collaging, but anything goes. Anytime you're going to glue something on to your painting, that's collaging. Next, we're going to do detail. And detail, you've done all semester. Detail is when you're picking a certain area to make as your focal point. So it's really going to come out. Like on this lemon, you know, I haven't finished this painting yet, but I really want that lemon to pop. I want it to be the star. I want it to be the number one. All these other things I want to be less important. So later, after I have the rest of this filled in, I'm going to go back maybe with more white, more yellows, and more detail, maybe a little bit of outlining, something to give this more punch and more definition. On this painting, not only does the composition pull us up this way, but I'm using a black paint pen Remember, you can buy these, they have oil in them, you have to shake them, read the directions. It's like using a magic marker, and I can add lines and detail, because detail is all about the little tiny bits and pieces that make you go up here. It's not about the big shapes. It's the darkest dark, the lightest light, often by the brightest brights. So I can decide, okay, how much detail do I want here? Do I need to add some more? I don't want my detail up here where it's zooming me off the page. I don't want it over here. There could be a little bit of detail here, but I really want it pretty much in one spot. If you have detail all over, you've lost your focal point. There's no leader of the band. So have one spot more defined than everything else. If you don't have any paint pens, you can use just a little brush, because a little brush is perfect for adding details. We are going to be doing sgraffito, and sgraffito is simply scratching. This is a technique that was developed in the Italian Renaissance. It only works when the paint is wet. So here, this is already dried. I did this earlier. So I put the paint on and I shaded this little teapot the way I wanted. And while it was still wet, I scratched into the wet paint to create these little fine, little scrawly, lacy lines. Now on this, I'm going to put, to show you, so I'm putting this wet paint down. I'm going to just do it really quickly so you get the idea. So here, I'm putting on enough paint. I can go up to the edges on this. I'm using a palette knife. You could use a brush, whatever, a sponge. You can use any kind of applicator to get your paint onto your surface. But while that's still wet, I can turn my canvas around so I can get up to this edge of my little spout. So, you know, oil paint doesn't dry right away, so you have some leeway in doing this. But while this is still wet, I can scratch through this. I could add a random design. I could add a very detailed, textured design. I could add words, whatever you like. It's quite easy. This would be great in the background of an abstract. You could use it for scratching in hair, scratching in eyelashes, tree trunks, branches, twigs, anywhere where you want a linear pattern. If you were doing a lace doily, that would take forever to paint, but you could do that by scratching through a pattern of lace. So this is called sgraffito or scratching. Impasto, we've been doing this all term. You might not know what it was called. Impasto is when we're putting on really thick paint. So with this, I have a lot of white and I'm using some permanent red to mix this color. And I love mixing with a palette knife because it doesn't waste any paint compared to a brush where you have all that paint left in the brush and maybe you can't use it. So I do like to mix with a palette knife. If the paint is really sticky and it's just not going to move around at all, I could use a little bit of my turpenoid, and I might do that. Just dip in a little tiny bit of that. It's going to make it a little softer and a little easier to spread. And I decided I wanted to do some impasto in the sky because it looks too skimpy. It doesn't have that vibrancy. I want it to have this richness, this voluptuousness, this feeling of really getting some textures on here. So I'm going to put it on, I'm going to squeeze it across here, I can make it fade out like the sky. I can have some come down here. I can twist and turn this. I could keep going on. I could go back with darker blues. I could repeat some of it here. Now here I'm putting it on thinner, but I want that color repeated. But right here it's super thick. So this is the technique we're going for. I can still soften some edges. I don't have to have each edge the same. For me, especially in the sky, that's really boring to have every edge the same. But look how already this has added so much to the sky. Oil crayon or oil pastel, you can buy these. They're not very expensive, but they have oil in the crayon, in the pastel. Some oil crayons are actually water soluble. Some you can use with turpentine, but look, you can make really fast lines so you can have crispness. Great for a signature, but also it's great for making soft edges. So I can go in and soften, and even really blend this. I could keep going and blending and blending. I could add more crayon to this, and I could make it super, super blended. So the oil crayon can be used with all your oil paints, just like you would with an oil brush. I could add turpentine to this to thin it. I can keep piling it on and making more color, more vibrant. I can use it for creating lines, for shapes, but I like how I can really fade out these edges. You can just keep going on and on. I'm using a little rag for that. Now, if you don't have oil crayons or oil pastels, you could get the same effect using a brush to create these lines, and you know how to fade it out with turpentine. You know how to blend out lines. So if you really don't have any of that, you can, just use a brush with your oils. Now, the crayons like Crayola crayons, you could use those, but those are actually wax and pigment, and so they're not going to blend like this, and they are going to actually resist the oil paint, which can be really cool. So you could try that. You're going to get a slightly different effect. So these are the 6 techniques we've done today: stamping, collaging, putting in detail, sgraffito, impasto, and oil crayon or oil pastel. So I'm so glad that you took this class. This assignment should be a blast. It should be really fun. And don't forget my number. Everybody should have this on speed dial by now. 402-615-2789. So what's the deadline? May 1st for this last painting. So you can do it. I know you can do it. You should have fun doing this. Please. You're in my prayers. I think about you students every day. I'm so honored that you took my class, and I hope to see you next year or next fall. Thank you. This is Julia Noyes. So keep me in mind when you're painting. If it's a landscape like this, a cityscape, or you're doing florals, the subject matter is up to you. Whatever you would like to do for your final assignment. Really, anything. Still life, landscape, people, dogs, whatever you would like to do. So have fun with this, and I hope that I will see you again. You can always check out my website, noiseartgallery.com, to see what I'm doing professionally. If you are in town, we are doing social distancing art shows outside. People can drive by, people can walk by, and we're putting artwork out every day. And I'm actually painting almost every day outside while the weather's nice. So you're welcome to drive by or to walk by if you're in Lincoln. I would like you to text me as soon as you can, because I want to know that you are working on these assignments. You can review these on Moodle. There's also a handout that goes with this. It's on Moodle. It in detail tells you all the reviews about these techniques. So none of these are hard at all to do. They should be easy for you to incorporate. So I can't wait to see some of your beautiful paintings. This class is so talented. Each one of you has a unique vision. You can do something wonderful. So go for it. Thank you.